The Lion King was such a great franchise that fans have spent countless hours doing their best to figure out the origins and backstories of characters that never even appeared in the movie. One of the most interesting of these characters also happens to be arguably one of the most influential characters in the entire franchise, which turned out to be Ahadi, the lion that most fans speculate was Mufasa's father. But what's there really to learn from Ahadi's story? Well, through the birth of a great king, an entire line of lions went on to care for the animals in the Pride Lands as no other ruler had before them. Now, it's important to note that almost everything we know about Ahadi either comes from non-canonical book sources or theories that tend to stem from those books. But when you consider how well these theories and stories align with The Lion King and The Lion King 2, it stands to reason that one or some of them might be true. In this case, we're going to start a couple of generations back from Mufasa with his potential grandfather. According to the 1994 book The Lion King, The Brightest Star, Mufasa's grandfather was a lion by the name of Mohatu. Mohatu was considered the first king of Pride Rock and spent a lot of time promoting peace, balance, and harmony in the Pride Lands, much like Mufasa did. Well, sometime after becoming the king, Mohatu and his wife, an unknown lioness, are believed to have given birth to Ahadi, the first prince of the Pride Lands. Much like Mufasa taught Simba in the first movie, it's likely that Mohatu spent a lot of his time teaching Ahadi about the circle of life, along with everything he would need to know to make him a great king someday. These lessons would have stuck with Ahadi as he grew up in the Pride Lands. As most lions do, Ahadi learned the basics of hunting, though we all know that it's the lionesses that are in charge of the majority of the hunting in a pride. But still, he had to learn how to fend for himself if he was ever going to be able to fend for the entire pride when he was king. The theory continues as Ahadi continues to grow and he meets another young lion around the same age. According to most theories and stories, this young lioness would have been Uru, his future queen, and mother of Mufasa and Scar. It's likely that Ahadi and Uru shared a lot in common, and eventually it became a tale as old as time. I know, different movie, but it remains true. It probably wasn't long before Ahadi and Uru realized that they had a strong connection to each other. Now, at this point in his life and even into adulthood, it's been debated what Ahadi would look like. While some fans speculate that he would have been built like Mufasa, muscular with bright fur and an orange mane, others depict Ahadi as a mixture of Scar and Mufasa. They see him as a large lion with bright colored fur but with a dark, almost black mane. Either way, the years would have continued, and eventually, Ahadi would have to face the first major tragedy in his young life that would also help spring him into the next chapter: the death of Mohatu. According to the book the Mohatu was based on, as well as most of the theories about him, Mohatu likely passed away of old age. The Pride Landers all mourned his death and even dedicated the brightest star in the sky to his spirit in memory. At the same time as this was happening, though, it was time for Pride Rock's new king to step forward. But how can you have a king without a queen? Well, you can't, and Ahadi didn't, at least not according to this theory. As Ahadi stepped up to take over the Pride Lands, he asked his love Uru if she would be his queen, and there was a very good chance that she would say yes. This would be the start of Ahadi's next major chapter as well as the start of his family. Ahadi was ready to take over the throne because of everything that Mohatu had taught him, and all of that knowledge eventually became something that he would have to pass down to the next generation. You see, according to the theory, it wasn't long after Ahadi and Uru got married that they discovered Uru's pregnancy. Then, not long after that, his first son was born, a young lion that you now know as Mufasa. Being the firstborn son, Ahadi did not hesitate to declare Mufasa as the future king and his successor to the throne. This would end up being a lot of responsibility for the young cub, but thanks to Mohatu, Ahadi was ready. As you know, Mufasa wasn't the only child that Ahadi must have had, as a year or so after Mufasa was born, they had another cub that would eventually become known as Scar. Again, this is where a whole lot of theories, non-canon stories, and speculation come into play, as Scar has gone by many names in the past, such as Taka or Askari. But in this case, we'll just stick with what we've learned from the Lion Guard and refer to Scar as Askari. In a matter of years, Ahadi would have gone from being a prince to becoming the king, a husband, as well as a father of two very different cubs. But the fact that Mufasa and Askari looked and acted differently wasn't the only difference between Ahadi's relationship with them, was it? According to The Lion King, A Tale of Two Brothers, a story heavily featuring Ahadi, he treated his sons very differently when it came to how he raised them. Now, two things of note. One, A Tale of Two Brothers is considered to be non-canon, And 2, I want to reiterate that Ahadi wasn't a bad father. He was just forced to treat Mufasa and Ascari differently based on their different future paths. With Mufasa being the heir to the throne, Ahadi likely felt that he needed to give him more attention to ensure that he would grow up to do what was best for the pride and the animals around them. This means that Ahadi likely ignored Ascari more often than not because he was so focused on Mufasa. In fact, in the book, Mufasa even mentioned that his brother and father didn't seem to get along. It was after Ahadi and his son saved Rafiki from hyenas that were attacking him. According to the book, Ahadi offered to let Rafiki stay with them in their den because he knew that it was important to be kind to strangers in need. The story continues with Rafiki choosing to sleep next to Mufasa. The lion and the baboon spent the majority of the night talking about the old spirits, which is when Mufasa let it slip that Ahadi and Ascari didn't get along. As the story of Ahadi continued, the Pride Lands were apparently under threat from the hyenas, and all of the animals other than the lions were in an uproar about it. This is definitely something that Ahadi needed to take care of, and he claimed that he would deal with the intruders as soon as possible. This declaration was one that Mufasa seemed to side with, but Ascari publicly disapproved of. Ascari claimed that Ahadi promised to take him and Mufasa hunting, and when his father informed him that the hunt would have to wait in order to protect the kingdom, the young lion was not happy. He outwardly claimed that Ahadi favored Mufasa, and even if Ahadi had something to say for himself, he was interrupted by the other animals before he could. He may have had a family now, but the lion knew that his first duty was to the kingdom, which again is something that he would pass down to Mufasa before he handed over the throne. Now, it's important to note that Ahadi most likely loved both of his children equally. In fact, he even saved Ascari shortly after he made those claims. According to the book, as a way to get back at both Ahadi and Mufasa, Ascari angered a Cape buffalo named Boma and caused him to attack Mufasa. However, he didn't take into account the sort of damage that Boma could do, and in this version of the story, that's actually how Ascari got his scar. Boma, along with the other Cape buffalo, attacked Ascari, and the only reason he survived is because in the book, Mufasa stepped in to save him. However, it's believed by a lot of fan theories that Ahadi was there that day too, and the two lions stopped the herd of buffalo from rampaging together. They were all family after all, and there was no way that Mufasa or Ahadi would let Ascari get truly hurt. As time continued, Ahadi likely did everything he could to keep the peace and to pass on as much knowledge as he could to Mufasa before his passing. The big question is, was he able to do that? As we know from his lack of appearance in The Lion King, Ahadi must have passed away at some point, meaning that it was up to Mufasa to prove that he learned how to be a great king like his father. Now, according to this theory, Ahadi died of natural causes and his death hopefully came very peacefully. Much like with Mohattu, the Pride Landers probably mourned his death for days or even weeks while also taking the time to prepare and welcome their new king, Mufasa. Mufasa clearly took his father's lessons to heart, as by the beginning of The Lion King, the Pride Land seemed to be truly peaceful. It was lush and green with blossoming foliage and herds of animals all living in balanced harmony. Mufasa did everything that he learned from the past generations like Ahadi and even Mohattu. But what's even cooler is that he got to take that knowledge and pass it on as well when he had his own son, a young lion that we all know and love, Simba. Simba learned about that circle of life from Mufasa, most likely in a similar way that Ahadi had taught him. He also taught Simba how to be brave, but more importantly, to be smart so that he and those around him could survive and be safe. Well, if this theory about Ahadi's backstory is true, then Ahadi also played a massive role in Simba's life, even if he never realized it. What do you think about Ahadi's backstory, though? Was he the great king and father that we all hope he was to Mufasa? Or is there something that you think we're missing? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.